All right, everybody, welcome back to another 5 o'clock day with the curling community. Today we are fabulously lucky once again to have State Representative Charlene Fernandez. She's currently serving Legislative District 4. Now get this, it includes parts of Yuma, Maricopa, Pima, and Pinal counties. Unbelievable. She first ran for the office in the House in 2014, lost by a narrow margin. Came back in 2016. No, 2014 was your first win.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 2014 was the first win. 2016 ran for re-election and she was actually unopposed. That's how good of a legislator she is. And then in 2018, she ran for re-election and she became the leader of the House Democrats. Madam Leader,
Yeah.
Your Honor, this is my honor. So how are you doing? How's your family?
We're doing great. Again, I'm one of the lucky ones in my household. I have, my husband's here, and my daughter, who's a kindergarten teacher, teaching in one room. And then her husband, my son-in-law, is a teacher, 11th graders, health. So he's in another room. And then my grandson, who's in 5th grade, he's in one room doing his 5th grade classwork. And then my youngest, the granddaughter, is in 3rd grade. Doing her 3rd grade classroom in her bedroom. So it's really fun. I get to see all the action, just open the door and listen in, and it's lots of fun. But I know that there's a lot of challenges to this, a lot of work involved, a lot of planning, and I really wouldn't want to be a teacher right now. It's tough work regardless of what we've given them. But we're all together and we're healthy and we're practicing social distancing. And as I told you, when I got home after we adjourned on the 27th, I believe, this morning was the first day I drove, went to the bank, and that's it. I haven't been out except walking. I go out and walk.
Wow. So you have the Fernandez compound over there.
I do. Very, very lucky.
I love the fact that your kids are teachers, and that's a real soft spot with me, and really a hard spot with the state of Arizona. Yeah. But we're going to get through that time, and it really is something to celebrate. Thank them for doing the wonderful work that they're doing. I don't know of another profession that could have been standing on their heads in a matter of weeks and producing the outcomes that they have. They're just wonderful people.
Exactly right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So you were supposed to be getting back into session. I think it was the 13th of April, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And nobody knew at the time, right? That was the plan. Put on your Nostradamus cap and tell me, do you think you're going back into session? And if you do, when?
Well, we've heard rumors. We're only the minority there of 29, and so we're not privy to what, the planning is. So we hear rumors, just like with the budget, we hear rumors. So now we're hearing that first full week in May, I guess it's May 4th, maybe. I don't see it happening. As Democrats, we're listening to the scientists and the researchers and our medical personnel, professionals. We have 2 doctors in our caucus, so we listen to them too. And what we're hearing, through modeling is that the peak is going to hit probably the middle of May. And I think the last place we need to be is at the legislature that first week in May.
Yeah, we're talking with Leader Fernandez for the Democrats in the House. Please type your questions into the bar if you have any, and we'll get them to her. I have some questions that I would love to ask. I want to kind of follow up with that 31-29 split in the House.
Mm-hmm.
Before the 2018 election, before you became the leader of the House Dems, it was 35-25. Mm-hmm. My first election, narrow loss. We were then 31-29, really close to 30-30, which is an even split. Tell me, Leader Fernandez, because I think you were already alluding to this, what kind of, I would say respect, but what kind of voice do Democrats have right now?
Not much of a voice. I came back very hopeful last session because we were 31-29. And we were ready to lead. We were ready to help. We wanted to work together. Our mantra is we'll work with anyone and everyone just to get it right. And We went into, we got our list of committees and how many seats we had, and we saw that, one committee, appropriations, 4 Democrats and 7 Republicans. Does that sound like a 31-29 split? It just didn't ring right to any of us, and it just got worse and worse and worse. I went to talk to the speaker about it because part of my job is to fight for my caucus and that we have equality there. And he was, listen, but that's it. Didn't do anything about it. Would not hear of it. There was last summer, we heard that they were going to add another person on one of the committees, a Republican. And so I called him and said, if you're adding a Republican on that committee, we need to have a Democrat on there. He did concede and gave, but it was the same ratio. We were hoping, all of us, that we would have a bigger voice, that more of our bills would be heard, and that hasn't become a reality. But I think our power is in our numbers when it comes to tweeting. We did a really good job since we've been out. We've worked together about amplifying each other's tweets. I always tell our members, there's 29 of us. If we only have 100 followers, which many of us have many more than that, but we've just reached 2,900 people. So we did that just recently with the small business community. We had a town hall with over 1,000 small business owners here in Arizona. And their first request from us was to help them try to get a moratorium on evictions. Many of them were facing evictions from their restaurants where they had done improvements, had made it their home, and now they were being pushed out. So we went to work and we amplified it. And, I know the governor had other business leaders had his ear on that, but I think we put enough pressure on him that within 48 hours, we had a moratorium on evictions for small businesses.
That is wonderful. You know what, we can argue whether the economy is working for everybody or not, but in this particular pandemic, even the people who are surviving at a higher level have been knocked down quite a few pegs. Mm-hmm. You have businesses that invest their profits into their business, so they're almost living from paycheck to paycheck as a business. Mm-hmm. So and it's all an investment and growing, and we need them, they need you. And so I'm happy to hear that voice amplified enough to make some sense. And then the governor followed along.
Yes, it was good news, good news.
Hey, so let me ask you, again, we're talking with Leader Fernandez of the House Democrats. If you have a question, please type it into the bar. We'll get to it, I promise. You can check out more information for her at charleneforarizona.org. And as she talks about Twitter, you can follow her on Twitter from there, right?
Yes.
She's a good tweeter. Anyway, we knew that we were going to shut down. We knew we were going to suspend operations at the legislature. And at that point, there was the talk of the skinny budget and all that kind of stuff. But what kind of bills did the Democrats have to put forward that were really about the good of the state of Arizona in a time of crisis that fell by the wayside because of petty politics?
Well, I'm going to tell you about one bill that was very important because our member, Jennifer Longden, who represents like downtown area in Phoenix, she had chaired, which was remarkable, that she was allowed to chair a committee all summer long. It was an ad hoc committee. She did an awesome job. She worked very, very well with her Republican counterpart, Tim Dunn, and they came up with some issues that hadn't been addressed for our group homes and nursing homes, and how many of those places aren't they're regulated, but they're not, people don't go in there to evaluate them to see how they're doing. So her and Mr. Dunn came up with some really good bills that did make it through the House and just stalled in the Senate. Those are bills that wouldn't really cost anything. We do have people that could already do their job. I think it was around maybe $2 million an appropriation that they would need, and that bill stalled. Many of our bills are like that. They're bills that really center around our kids, the people in Arizona, what would be better for people in Arizona, to fill those holes in the safety net that now we see where those holes are. We've been talking about the fact that unemployment insurance at $240 a week was not enough. If you do the math, $240 a week equals $6 an hour. Who can live on $6 an hour?
Well,
So,
it's the second lowest in the United States, just above Mississippi at $235 a week.
right, that's
And and
exactly right.
um, and you'll remember that last year the House voted, all Republicans, 31-29, to reduce the voter initiative of a mandated minimum wage back down to $7.50
That's exactly
against
right.
council, against the Constitution. It really has to make you question. But go back to these holes in the safety nets are now chasms. They are really fissures.
Yes, absolutely. And we've seen and we've talked about, and I'm sure people get tired of hearing us say this, but we will never, ever stop fighting about the issues that for our people that are in most need. We, as an elected official, I want to find solutions. I don't want to be punitive. When I see a bill that the SNAP bill, the TANF bill that helps women with children that are living on the edge week by week by week, and now we tell them that, by the way, you know, you can only stay on this for 12 months. It doesn't matter if every place else in the country it's 36 months or 24 months. You can only be on TANF for 12 months. When we talk about looking for work when we know there isn't work to find, but you need to write something down. You need to find childcare. And by the way, we're not going to help you find childcare, but you better get out there and look for work or no unemployment insurance, no TANF, no SNAP. They're very, very punitive. And we want to move away from any kind of social service that would be punitive. We want to make sure that we help people, much like a bill that Kelly Butler, Representative Kelly Butler, she's just a great legislator, and she had a wonderful bill for pregnant women. We all know that a pregnant woman should have her teeth checked. That is one, we talked to many dentists that told us that a lot of problems that women have with their children when they have a baby is because of decay. And so she had a bill. That bill went nowhere. But guess what? The following session, a Republican picked it up and it passed. Now, that does make us halfway happy because we know that we are helping people in Arizona, but by golly, that was Kelly Butler's idea, and people shouldn't have had to wait a year because it had a D on it.
Yeah, let me just say that Kelly Butler will be joining us in an upcoming episode, and I will be talking to her about healthcare because that's the committee she sits on, and that's her sweet spot. And the fact that we have women who are poor not getting the health care they need for their teeth, which then multiplies in cost to the state later on and actually puts babies at risk. You know, right to life, my patootie.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Yeah. So, you know what? Let's just say that there are some bipartisan bills, right? I want to go back to, for a second, how you talked about the people's business and how you fight for the people and fight to get your voice heard. Let's keep in mind that the split between Republicans, Independents, and Democrats is pretty even across the state.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about getting things for the people, you're talking about a whole lot of people in Arizona, 400,000 about.
Yes.
I mean, quite a few that voted, you know, for different areas. Tell me what bipartisan bills actually were blocked by leadership? You know, so GOP leadership is in place, and you have some bipartisan bills that never get to the floor. Maybe they come out of committee and never get assigned to the floor, come to Cal. What great ideas were out there that you were all working together on?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought you were talking about the other leadership. You know, we've got members one after the other. We had our Judiciary Committee, which consists of 4 people, Mr. Rodriguez, Ms. Pollack, Ms. Engel, and Mr. DeGracia, 3 attorneys and 1 teacher on the Judiciary Committee. We call them the Dream Team. They worked really hard on several bills on earned release credit. This is very important. We've got people sitting in prison that are there simply because, you know, they couldn't pay their bail and they ended up, you know, being put in prison for that. We've got people in there for a 1/4 ounce of marijuana, you know, and yeah, they are breaking the law. I understand that. That's a law and they broke it. But they're not violent criminals. We have them incarcerated at a rate per day than we would ever pay for our public school child. and we continue to keep making the mistakes. Over 40,000 people that are incarcerated in the state of Arizona. In Arizona, we have more Latinos incarcerated here in Arizona than in Florida, Texas, and California. Just think about that. Just think about that. Those were the numbers we were given, more here in Arizona. So our dream team worked really hard throughout the summer to make sure.
I was told not to interrupt you, but is that per capita? Or is
That's per
that
capita. I
actual?
should have said that per capita.
Okay.
But that's a remarkable number. And
Yeah.
so our dream team worked hard all summer long, coming up with ideas to reduce the incarceration rate, to make sure that people, a diversion program, before we start incarcerating people, that we do something in the front end, that we do something about recidivism, because we know that happens. People come out and they're not ready to be out. They've been incarcerated for years. They're not ready to go into the workforce. What are we doing to make sure people don't come back in? And these were the bills that our 4 members worked on, and not one of them was heard. Not one of them. They're just waiting there for when we're in control to make sure that those bills are brought forth.
Okay, so here's the part where, you know, I talk about my hide is chafed, and it's because I'm a little overweight, but I'm really about to preach here. This is not a Democrat idea about sentencing reform. We have one of the 3 states in the nation that require 85% of sentences to be served. We are also one of the biggest proponents of private prisons. You put those 2 together and you have nothing working for the people of Arizona. You're wasting money and you're wasting lives, and it's got to stop. And we have to elect different people. So what happens is when you get into leadership, when we flip this House to 3129, good bills are going to be heard. We're going to save Arizona money. It used to be that we spent twice as much on higher education as we did on incarceration, and that has been flipped 180.
Sure has.
So I'm going to tell people out there, if you want better jobs, if you want people that are going to be productive parts of society, if you want an Arizona that has a future, you need to vote differently.
That's right. And we have to invest in our kids. My first session there, you can imagine, much like you, Eric, you know, you're a teacher. My background, that's what my degree is in elementary education. I never taught, that's another story, but my heart is with public education. And you can imagine my shock. My first term there, we cut millions from our public university, millions, and then we defunded every community college in Pima County and in Maricopa County. I, for one, know what community colleges do. It was my gap between getting out of high school and getting to a university. I could not have done it without a community college in my area. I fought hard against that. And you can imagine, I thought, what am I doing here? I came here to fight for public education, and we're literally cutting every community college in Pima and Maricopa. Every session after that, I would just hold my breath thinking, my community college might be next, or their community college might be next. And I know for our rural areas, that's our survival. Our community colleges are our survival.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing a credit recovery program for high school students. And once they took a credit recovery course to get their high school diploma, they were no longer eligible for 4-year universities because that's where the transcripts rolled. Well, they zeroed out the funding for the Maricopa County community colleges. A lot of these kids were on football teams and got scholarships to play over at SEC and become a fighting artichoke. Well, the fighting artichokes are no longer. They do not have a football team. These kids that develop, these boys that grow up and develop slower and haven't found their stride yet, they are going to be sucking on society.
Yeah.
I have found, and you correct me if I'm wrong, if there's one difference between Republicans and Democrats, I feel that Democrats generally look towards the future for everybody. And Republicans, you know, as we're going to pigeonhole them, are generally looking out for today and for themselves. And we have to stop that. We have to converge those 2 ideas. We have to work for both today and tomorrow.
You know, Eric, and what we think is pay now or pay later. and I'd rather pay now to make sure that our kids are, you know, have a quality education, that the classroom is filled with kids that are ready to learn and all the resources are there. I have visited classrooms when they have 35 kids and 30 desks. It's not fair to see 5 kids sharing a desk or literally sitting on the floor. That is not the Arizona I know. That's not the Arizona where I grew up, and that's not the Arizona where I attended public schools.
And if you agree with Leader Fernandez's message and you want her not to be in the 29 but the 31, you go and get yourself to curlin23.com and you invest today, because we're going to win this race, we're going to win this seat, we're going to flip this house, and we're going to put Arizona on firm footing for the future.
That's right.
Hey, got a couple of questions here from the audience, and I'll get back to my questions. We're talking with Leader of the House, Democrats, Charlene Fernandez. Check her out at charlenefораrizona.org. Bob Kelly, I don't know if you can answer this, but he says, do you believe Ducey will follow the healthcare experts, or will he follow the Trump lead when it comes to opening up the country and opening up our state?
I'm hoping he'll listen to the experts. We're listening to the experts. As I mentioned earlier, you know, we're watching the modeling. We're talking to the researchers. We're talking to the people that know that's happening in other states. We know that our peak is not, we haven't reached our peak. We need to do more testing. We are fighting for that. U of A, one of our universities, they've come to our rescue, being, you know, able to do work. Yes. Bear down.
No, that's
a fork. That's ASU. Yeah. Well, them too. They've come to our rescue too, but bear down. U of A got the proposal in, and they are fighting for more. They will be producing more test kits, and what's exciting, it's going to really affect areas like Yuma County, because we've kind of been left behind again. So very proud of our university stepping up. That's ASU and NAU. And actually what they've done too, you know, it was like one day they were there, next day they weren't, and now their students are online.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how they were able to just work that and get it to work right.
Yeah, I've got one of those students, NAU. Hey, it happens, right?
Yeah.
No shame, no blame. Hey, let me ask you something. So we were talking about Governor Ducey and hoping he listens to the experts. What we're hearing, though, is celebrating Hitler's birthday on 4/20 is that there's going to be some kind of organized movement to protest at the Capitol to open the darn state. Don't tread on me. Give me all of that pandemic. What is that all about?
I don't know. And of all days to pick, really, April 20th. I mean, what do they tell us? That we have to learn from history so that we won't repeat it? Well, one of the things I learned that Hitler was born on April 20th. So they're going to show up at the Capitol. We're not there, obviously. Hopefully they'll be wearing masks. What do you think? I'm not sure. Hopefully they'll be distanced 6 feet apart, social distancing. Do you think that'll happen? I don't know, but we'll see.
I'll tell you what, I bet you they'll have a lot of firearms.
Yeah, I bet they will too.
Yeah. Oh boy. We could get into all kinds of adjusting for different life's deficiencies, but we won't. Hey, Dave Long asked a question. All right, so. Hey, so you travel a great distance, okay? You come from all these different counties. You have to travel a lot. I was just looking at my opponent, Jay Lawrence's filings, right? Okay, hey, watch it now. We love Jay. Go Jay.
Yeah, go Jay.
Jay Lawrence has a whole bunch of weekly expenditures for gas from different stations. Don't pick up your jaw, woman.
Really? Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
He charges like $60 a week to the Fries or the Quick Trip or the whatever. Now, don't you get paid from the state for like mileage?
Well, okay. So I'm going to tell you, we do get mileage twice a week when we're in session to get to Phoenix and to get to the Capitol, wherever you live, to get to the Capitol and to get back to wherever your home base is. Every day we get mileage for going to the Capitol and going to our home in Phoenix. Does that make any sense? So like for me in Yuma, I get it once a week, coming from Yuma to Phoenix, Phoenix to Yuma, and then every morning when I go to Phoenix, go to the Capitol and then return at home, I get mileage. That's really strange that he would be charging mileage from his campaign.
Well, it's not the
Um,
mileage. It's just gas. It's just
uh,
gas.
or gas, but I mean, for crying out loud, as you said, my district is the second largest in the state. I do go all the way to Tucson, South Tucson. I pick up the Tohono O'odham Nation. I go to Ajo, Gila Bend. I have Buckeye, Goodyear, Arlington, and then of course the great city of Yuma. And I go all the way down to the international border and pick up San Luis and Somerton. When I first got elected, I thought, wow, this is really gerrymandered, you know, for on the other side for a Republican, and this is what we got. But guess what? That district has made me stronger.
Yeah.
I can see the commonalities between, you know, what we have in Tucson and Yuma, what we have in Buckeye and San Luis. So they thought they were going to bury us, but they made us stronger. Like seeds, we grew, we flourished, and my seatmates and I love our area. We've learned a great deal, and I think we're better legislators because of it.
Right. Charlene Fernandez, leader of the House Dems. Woohoo! Hey, so speaking of my opponent, Jay Lawrence, he also charges, you know, we have a pretty savvy audience out there. So he charges his ALEC dues to his campaign as a campaign expenses. Pick up your jaw, lady.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
so he charges his dues, his ALEC dues to his campaign expenses. Don't tell anybody. Shh. What kind of, this is a question from Dave Long. What kind of legislative pull does ALEC now have? ALEC, for those that might not know, is the American Legislative Exchange Commission. It's basically a far-right think tank that has model legislation that gets introduced in the petri dishes of society, which is Arizona. What kind of sway do they hold?
Well, I guess they do for 31 members there. I know whenever they have their conferences, wherever they have them, whatever state, whatever city, we're all invited. And I asked John Allen one time, because he's the one that came and put it on my desk. And I said, I don't want this. And I said, anyway, you know, we don't do ALEC. He says, yeah, but this way, if we hand it out to you, then it's okay. So it's okay to hand out to all the members. I'm like, really? Okay, well, it went in the trash. Yeah, it has a lot of sway with them. And, you know, they get a little angry when the members go, well, is this an ALEC bill? Or
Right.
I saw this bill being introduced and they'll name the state. So it's kind of funny, because I'm going to tell you, Eric, and I mean, we have our faults too. I'm sure we do, but a lot of our bills come from our constituents. I love to tell the story about my bill that I had a couple of years ago. It was a community service worker bill, and what it was here in Yuma County, because we have a lot of agriculture, we have community health service workers. They're called promotoras in Spanish, and what they do is they provide best practices for our farm workers. You know, make sure you have your flu shot, wash your hands with soap and water, wash your clothes separate from your families, you know, just best practices. So one of the doctors at the health clinic here in Phoenix, in Yuma, asked me if I would run a bill to have promotoras be certified in the state of Arizona. No cost to the state of Arizona. It would be a streamlined curriculum throughout the state, because of evidently there's promotoras all over. I didn't know that. And I said, absolutely, it sounds like a great bill. So we ran it, got it real nice and pretty that everybody liked it. I think it passed the House like 54, you know, for it and 6 against it. It went to the Senate, and it wasn't heard. It just died. And that's what happens. You know, you just can't even cry over it or worry about it. But anyway, the next session, Heather Carter came to me. She's a Republican, and she said, Charlene, I really loved your community service health worker bill. And I said, yeah, it's a great bill. She says, can I run it? I said, go for it. She ran that bill. It passed the House 60-0. It passed the Senate, and the governor signed it. That was a bill from a constituent. That was based on work from a constituent, from a doctor, to our staff, that made it very, very nice and put it into bill form, and she got it passed, only because there was an R next to her name.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you swallowed your pride for the betterment of, no, seriously. I mean, a lot of people might get to this position and be like, no, it's my bill. But it helps people. It helps people.
Yeah.
And so thank you for doing that. Oh, one more question about ALEC. Do some of the Dems actually vote with ALEC? Do we have any ALEC members in the Democratic caucus right now?
Not that I know of. No, no.
Okay.
I don't think we have any card-carrying ALEC members.
Okay, so we're going a little bit long on our broadcast. Are you okay with that, Miss?
I am fine.
Okay, because this is so good. We have one issue that I really want to hit on. We had this big thing about the per diems, right? So you guys aren't in session, but you're getting per diems. And I understand there's a kind of an ebb and flow for those people that live inside Maricopa County and those that live outside. There's a much different per diem. Last session, there were 31 votes to triple the per diem. My opponent, Jay Lawrence, voted to triple his own per diem, even though we know he takes his gas money out of his own campaign and he takes his ALEC dues out of his own campaign. And the guy probably has a lot of free food already on the Capitol lawn. What are your thoughts about the per diem?
Well, I voted against the increase, the tripling for everybody. They were pushing around that bill, you know, and it probably would have passed, except they were using it as a carrot, you know, will you a new per diem bill just for outlying areas, which would be like my area, Mojave County, Yavapai County, all those areas. But like I said, they probably could have gotten it passed and maybe the governor might have signed it, but they were using it as a carrot and then COVID hit and it's just sitting there. You know, I probably would have supported that bill. And I want to tell you a story, just one of many members, but one of the members in our caucus that lives in Tucson. And she very well can't drive home every day to Tucson after we leave the Capitol. You know, a lot of times we're there until late in the night. So she has an apartment in Phoenix. We all know what the cost of apartments are now. I mean, they're just, I mean, it's made it out of the reach of most people, but especially people that make 24/7 a year. So she gets an apartment, a studio. She brings gets a U-Haul, brings all her stuff, furnishes it, and she's there January, February, March, April, just whenever we sine die. And then the day that we sine die, when we adjourn out, she puts all her stuff in storage and then leaves her apartment. I mean, it's no longer her apartment. She's not paying anymore. But now with COVID, she's paying for her apartment right now. She's still paying for that apartment, even though she's in Tucson. So I see the need with a legislator like her. I'm not going to mention her name, but she is an awesome legislator. She's an awesome researcher. She's a valuable part of our caucus. She's there every day. She's on time. She's voting on every bill. And yet we would, you know, take her per diem away now, or we wouldn't think about increasing it in the future. I think if we're going to get really, really good legislators, we have to somehow compensate them and make sure we're not still getting people that are taking their ALEC dues out of their campaign fund.
Let me just say this. I'm going to say where I would stand on that position. I would say that there should be per diem, a larger per diem for those people coming outside of Maricopa. It should be relegated to the distance you live from the Capitol. And then those people within Maricopa County should not be getting a per diem. And I would be happy to vote for that legislation. And then we can kind of argue about the other stuff. You can tell me why you need money. I mean, that's fine. But right now, we have a constitutional problem here because you cannot raise your salary as a legislature without going to a vote of the people. The people have said no. And that end around just doesn't work with me.
And Eric, you know, do you blame the people? I actually voted yes as a layperson to increase the salary because I've always been really good friends with legislators and I know what the legislators here have to go through leaving their home. So when that was on the ballot, absolutely I voted yes.
Oh, I voted yes too.
But the behavior of the legislators today, you know, every year that I've been there, well, with the exception of the first 2 years, we've had ethics complaints against legislators, and we've had, had to pay for attorneys to come in and do investigative work. That's what we've been doing. And what kind of a message does that send to our constituents, to the citizens of Arizona? I am there to work. I am there to get there before 8 o'clock in the morning and stay there until the last person leaves, because that's what I'm paid to do. And it may not, when you figure out the hourly wage, it may not be minimum wage, but I chose that. And my constituents chose me.
And it's very similar to being a teacher. As you work for this salary, doesn't mean it's the best salary, but you're committed to it. And I think we have to raise the price that we pay for teachers to get better teachers and more teachers. I think we have to do the same for legislators. And I think we have to call out those people that shouldn't be in the legislature, which is where Curlin23.com comes in play. No, so
that's right.
A question upon those hours, though, and this is a really good one, and we'll wrap up after this. Alex Wood asks, what can we do to hold the legislature accountable for passing budgets late at night, having closed door meetings? How do we get more sunshine to this group? And how do we maybe put something in place that people don't have to be there at 3 a.m. to watch them pass a budget?
Eric, we've done a lot of talking to people from way back when that used to be legislators in the day, because there was a time when, our legislators were there, every single one of them. It was more bipartisan. It was people wanting to work for the betterment of Arizona. I think of the people that, access. Think about the legislators that thought up access, one of the model programs here in Arizona throughout this country. Think about how those people work together to make sure that we had access. Medicaid, if we want to go a little bit closer to home, to make sure that we have Medicaid. So we've talked to people about how they used to do the budget. Did you know that they used to put together the budget in a committee room with people listening in and live streaming, and you could come in and watch as departments, as agencies came before legislators, answered questions, and defended why they needed the budget that they were asking for. That day happened. Those were the days that it happened that way. That's when Department of Corrections wasn't one of the largest budgets in the state of Arizona, bigger than what we have for our public schools, for the Department of Education. So we really need to go back to those days where we can sit there and listen to them defend it and ask the right questions. That's how we're going to do it.
Leader Fernandez, I'm going to put you on the spot then.
Okay.
I think we can come out of this pandemic a better state. I think we can come out a better country. I think we can come out kinder people, listening to understand, not to debate. Will you say right now, when you are Leader Fernandez of the majority Democrats, will you have open hearings on the budget?
I will. And I can tell you that our assistant leader, Randy Freese, is on board too.
Fantastic. You guys get me elected. I am for that every which way you go. Okay, last question. I got to ask this question for Lynn Remsen, because teacher to teacher, she needs to know. Do you know anything about the status of Senate Bill 1088 that would continue eligibility for triple D persons with spina bifida past the preschool years?
Oh, that like a DD bill, but it was education?
DD.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know, but you know what, Eric,
Can you get me that?
I will.
I will get that for you. Lynn will get you that answer, okay?
And just text it to me.
And Kathy Gomez says, thanks. You are amazing for representing our family and friends over in Yuma County.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. That makes me feel good.
Support Charlene Fernandez, the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives. Go to charlenefораrizona.org. Give her kick the tires on that campaign. We need her to be the leader of the House, leader of the House. Huh?
Thank you.
Okay, hey, I got one question for you to kind of wrap this up. It's a fun question. I like to get to know people on a personal level. So you and I are pretty much from the same generation. I loved growing up and watching Gilligan's Island.
Yes, I did too.
And they started off, and it was a 3-hour cruise, a 3-hour cruise. And then the weather started getting rough, and the tiny ship was tossed. If not for the courage of the fearless crew, the minnow would be
Would
lost.
be lost.
Okay, so it's kind of similar to where we are right now. We got this 3-hour virus that's going on and on and on. Tell me, think about your colleagues in the House. Which one of those would you see as the professor on Gilligan's Island?
Oh, that's so easy. That is so easy. That's
Is it
Dr. Freeze.
Oh,
It's Dr. Freeze.
right.
He-
What a great name, too, huh?
Oh, yes, and he does his homework. He reads the bills and he asks the greatest questions, and he's a pleasure to work with. He and I have been together since, I mean, we both got elected at the same time and our desks were right next to each other. So I've been
Fantastic.
able to pick his brain. Yes.
Okay, how about the guy with the cap? That guy called Skipper. The Skipper.
Skipper? You know, I think I'd have to, I'm staying really close to home with the leadership team. That
Yeah.
would have to be Reggie Bolding.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I depend on Reggie to let me know what's going on in outside circles. He's a great resource for all of us.
Okay, so who would he be taking his hat off and smacking around? Who's his little buddy? Who's Gilligan? Dagnummit Gilligan.
Warren Peterson, not his buddy, but he could smack him around.
Oh,
Didn't change the dynamics of Gilligan's Island.
fantastic. Okay, last two questions. Who's Marianne and who's Ginger?
Well, for sure, Marianne would have to be Kelly Butler.
Kelly Butler.
She's
She's just all American, isn't she?
She's all American. She's the real deal. I mean, that's
Yeah.
all there is to it. What Kelly says she's going to do, she does.
Nice.
You're lucky
We're
that
going to
you
have her on a
have
show
her.
coming up soon, so you
And you
watch.
tell her what I said, okay?
I'll introduce her as Marianne.
Okay, do that. Okay.
Okay, last
And,
question. Who's your Ginger?
You know, it's not gonna be someone from it's gonna be someone from the legislature, but not elected. That is gonna be our chief of staff, Ginger. She has been so good to us. And
I
she's
know
a
her.
beauty. Yeah,
Cynthia
Cynthia Aragon. Yeah, and she's a beauty, but she's got some brains. She's got some
Yeah.
brains, and she takes care of all of us.
Yeah, Ginger had brains too. She just hid them.
Yeah, but Cynthia
Yeah.
doesn't hide them.
Cynthia and I went together. We were actually in the same class of the Center for Progressive Leadership.
Oh my goodness.
Her and I went through that fellowship together with Beth Meyer and Julie Horwin and Kirsten Sinema and Chad Campbell. And yeah,
Oh yeah, small world. Yeah, she has been
Small world.
great for us, and under her leadership, we've grown. Like I said, when I got there, we were 23, 25 the next time we had an election, and 29. So we're
yeah.
gonna
And
come
what's the
back.
number? What's your prediction for the number next year?
I keep saying 35. We're going to be 35.
I think it's going to be 33. Actually.
You think it's going to be 33?
Yeah. Look, I don't want to go into the millionaire's wife because Randall Freeze, Dr. Freeze is. Sorry, Alex, we're not going to get to Lovey right now.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
You
Bye.
too.
Be safe. Be safe.